Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news, and as appears to be the way this week, there's a lot of news and it's not all necessarily good. We will be talking about the demand for the Premier League to be stopped. This is coming from Brentford manager Thomas Frank. He's saying they've got 13 cases. They want the Premier League to be stopped. There is pressure for the Premier League to be stopped, and we'll be talking about that, of course. But I want to start off talking about Erling Haaland because I'm actually fed up of just talking about... Look, a year ago, I'm talking from a personal point of view here because mental health is very important. A year ago, literally about this time out from Christmas, they cancelled it. We all thought we were going to have a different Christmas this year, and the same shit is happening again. And look, maybe it's nobody's fault, maybe it's somebody's fault, maybe this virus isn't even as bad as we think it is and everyone's overreacting. I don't know. But it puts a big mental strain on everybody. So if you are feeling stressed and pissed off, welcome to the club. I'm not happy about it either. But look, that's not necessarily to do with football. That's just a general thing. It's like, you know, I've just been told that the pub that I go to on Christmas Day that I couldn't go to last Christmas Day as a family, that's been closed. That's closed down again. So it's just like, fucking hell, another year of this bullshit. Really pisses me off. But in relation to football, that's what we're here to talk about. But what I did want to say at the start, because I think it's important, is just if you are feeling frustrated, lots of people feel the same. We're all in the same boat, so you're not alone if you're feeling a bit down and fed up about it. So it is mentally draining, as Kalian says. It is mentally draining, and the worst thing is, if this virus ends up not actually being that bad, we're all locking down for absolutely no reason, aren't we? But you know, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Let's talk about Erling Haaland first, then we'll talk about what's going to go on in the Premier League. What I would say is that Man United are trying to get the game cancelled, Brighton are trying to get the game cancelled, Brentford are trying to get their games cancelled, Leicester and Spurs wanted their game cancelled tonight. So they're all trying to get the game cancelled. But what they don't realise is that I don't agree with Brentford's manager Thomas Frank. So he's basically said, let's lock it down till Boxing Day, let's not play this weekend and let's not play midweek. I mean, what type of idiot is he? That's not going to work. It's not like if you give yourself a week off, it's going to stop. It won't stop. And what will footballers do at the weekend with a weekend off? Do you think they're just going to stay in their house and play PlayStation? They'll be socialising. They'll be going to parties. So give them a week off, and we'll have more in a week's time. So I actually think what they need to do, and I've said it so many times, is go back to the protocols they had a year ago. A year ago, there was no vaccine, and we had hardly any games cancelled. They had protocols in place a year ago that basically every club adhered to, and it limited the spread of a very infectious infection that there was no vaccine to help out anybody for. And yet here we are a year later, a new, a more infectious variant, I agree. But the problem is that the players are not adhering to the protocols they did a year ago. They've got total freedom again, and the clubs need to lock that freedom down. And people say, well, our footballers have got lives. They have got lives. But a year ago, they were living to different rules, and they need to go back to living to those rules. And that's what they should do. And I guarantee within a week or two, it'll all calm down in relation to football, and it'll carry on. But they can't just go, let's not play games. It'd be stupid to do that. Anyway, let's talk about Erling Haaland, and we can come back to that. So I want to talk a bit about football because I'm fed up of talking about games being cancelled. It's draining, like you said. We do have to talk about that, but I just want to talk about a few transfer stories first, because there's one about a keeper, there's one about Martial, and there's one about Erling Haaland. So this is coming from Sport Build. Now, it's funny, we were talking about United's need for a striker yesterday. If you think about it, Martial wants to go, Cavani will go, you've got Greenwood, who's very young, Ronaldo, who's very short term, and then you've got Rashford, who some people just don't think is a striker. So I think we do need a striker. And I also think that Erling Haaland is a striker that Manchester United would love to buy. Solskjaer wanted him. Ranić's a big fan of him. United would love a striker like this. Now, apparently we're not going to go for marquee signings anymore, but I think we would go for Haaland. Now, I said yesterday, before this story came out, and it's coming from Germany, it's coming from Sport Build. I said yesterday, whether we buy Haaland or not, we will be heavily linked to him. Whether we get him or not, we will be in the race for him. That's the way the story will go. United will be attached to Erling Haaland, whether we're in for him or not, because it helps Mino Raiola, it helps Erling Haaland if people think United are in for it, because it can start a bidding war. So I don't know whether we will go for him or not, but what Sport Build are saying is that Manchester United are in the race for Erling Haaland and would be an attractive proposition for Erling Haaland, but Champions League football would need to be acquired by the summer. Well, I think we will get Champions League football. I think we will get top four. Now, obviously, the downside of games being cancelled is that Arsenal are now in fourth and they can celebrate fourth. I said it a couple of days ago. I'd rather have the points on the board than games in hand. And if Spurs win their games, they're top four. And if we win our games, we're top four. But we're not playing any games. They are. What if they play again at the weekends? Well, they'll be like four or 5 points ahead of us. So it's all right saying you've got games in hand. You've got to win those games in hand. And, I think we will get top four. But at the moment, we're not in the top four position. So, yeah, of course, to buy a player like Erling Haaland, you're going to need top four. But I think it's a very difficult one, and I think it's one that always divides the fan base. Do I want Erling Haaland, the player at Manchester United? Yes, I do. Do I think Manchester United can buy Erling Haaland? Yes, I do. It would cost a lot of money. My big problem with Erling Haaland is Mino Raiola. We've had 6 years of what Mino Raiola can do to your football club when he's got one of his big clients at your club. With Pogba, he's leaving, he's not. The day before the derby, he's spoken to Pep. All these crappy stories. Erling Haaland is more valuable to Raiola than Pogba ever will be now, because Pogba's coming towards the end of his career and Erling Haaland's going to be one of the best strikers in the world. He's going to move him every 3 years. If whoever Erling Haaland signs for in the summer, within a year, Mino Raiola will be talking about his next club, because that's what he does. Now, do you want that type of a relationship at Manchester United when you're trying to build a football club? If Erling Haaland said, I'm a Man United fan, I want to come and finish my career here and play here for 10 years and break the goal scoring record, then happy days. He's going to come here for 3 years, earn money and piss off. And that, for me, is why I don't think it's a good deal for United. But look, we're going to be in the race. We'll have to wait and see. Andy and Bruno says, Mark, you are right. I'm pissed off too, mate. Totally fed up with all this crap. Got to live with it. I know. We've got to live with it. I'd agree. So, yeah, that's the latest on Erling Haaland. And the reason I mention it on the morning show is because the morning show is a news show, and also because it's coming from Germany and Sport Bild, which is where Erling Haaland is playing. The money, I mean, Chris has just said £47 million agent fees. I believe the release clause that kicks in for Haaland and does kick in for Haaland in the summer is like £70 million. That's 70 million to Dortmund. That's like 50%, maybe even less than 50% of what his value is. I think in a normal market, Erling Haaland's 150 million at least. So don't worry. Whoever buys Erling Haaland will be spending 150 million, because Dortmund might get 70, but there'll be another 80 going to fees and agent fees and everything. So massively expensive deal to do. But look, I agree with Brainiac. He says more realistic if we go for somebody else like Vlahovic or somebody else. So yeah, but the trouble is there's no disputing that Erling Haaland at Manchester United would be a revelation, or Chelsea or anywhere else. Nobody can argue that he's not a fantastic striker that's going to make you a very, very good side if you give him the service. The issue is it's a very short-term deal. He might be, if he signed for United in the summer, he might be here less time than Ronaldo. As stupid as that sounds, because Raiola will be looking to get him a move. And that we know, we've already got experience of that toxic situation. And Manchester United need to swerve those toxic situations, because we've wasted a lot of time dealing with that. I don't think it would be a graveyard shift, Tom, with Ranić in the team. I think we would work. Do you think Ronaldo and him would work fantastically well together, says Alistair? I'm not convinced. I think we're crying out for a player that can do the link-up play, and I don't know whether Haaland can do that. So I don't know whether Ronaldo and Haaland would work well together. I personally want a striker a bit like a Benzema, someone like that, who can score goals but also do the work. I reckon Ralph could get 2 or 3 players for that fee, fill those voids in the midfield and buy cheaper attacking forwards, says Jacob. Erling shouldn't be a priority. Get us midfielders, says the big Hoss. And I do agree with you on that. Now, interestingly, just before we talk about this Premier League lockdown, in fact, should we just do that now? So that's the story on Erling Haaland. I've got a few more stories to bring you about a goalkeeper. Apparently, we've been scouting Leeds goalkeeper Meslier, I think is how you pronounce it. So this was a story that came out last night that United have actually they consider him to be the best young goalkeeper in the Premier League, with the potential to be the best goalkeeper in Europe. Leeds goalkeeper. And we've scouted him apparently. Now, why would we do that? As a quick story, Henderson's looking to leave, so we probably need to bring another goalkeeper in. But again, I think United just have got, if there's any truth in this, United have got it wrong again. We don't need to go and get a young first-team goalkeeper who's got loads of talent. We've got David De Gea, who's 30. David De Gea is going to be our goalkeeper for the next 3 or 4 years. For the next 3 or 4 years, we need to do what City do. What Liverpool do. You bring a goalkeeper in that if David De Gea can't play, they can play. an experience. I mean, Tom Heaton may be just about right. Something a little bit better than that would be nice. I mean, to be honest, Sergio Romero was perfect. Experienced, good goalkeeper. We don't need somebody to come in and compete with David De Gea. I actually think that destabilised De Gea having Henderson there, and it didn't do Henderson any favours. But the thing about the Leeds goalkeeper for me is I don't watch Leeds play every week, but when I do watch them, I think he's a bit shit. I do. He always just seems to make... I think 3 of the Man City goals were his fault. Front post glitch, I can't say he's not a good goalkeeper because he probably is, but and I don't watch Leeds very often. But every time I see him, he's always bending over, picking the ball out the back of the net. And also a lot of the goals I think are on him, but apparently United are interested. As of July, they're putting a percentage cap on agent fees, so Raiola and other agents won't be able to charge massive agent fees for big players, says Nick. Well, it's about time that happened, Nick, to be honest with you, isn't it? It is a bit about time. I'd rather invest in the midfield and defence than go for another striker, says Ami. About time we started trusting Greenwood. He's just a year younger than Haaland. Well, I have said that for a very long time. I'm a big fan of Mason Greenwood, as are many of you, and I do think that he has got... he has got a lot of potential, but I'm just looking at Adam on Twitter saying I'm getting more and more nervous as a game day approaches now. Clarity needed in advance. Announce it today if it's off, please. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the. I'm just having a quick read to see if we've got anything else going on here. So, whoa. Okay, that's all about agents. So, as I said, there are a few things to sort of bring you this morning. So, there is Simon Stone tweeted this morning basically saying, so a bit of clarity which no one seems to want to give. So we've hunted out a bit of clarity for you. So Simon Stone basically said today that the Premier League want teams to play football if they've got 14 first team players available. So 14 available. That means a team of 11 and 3 subs, one of which could be a goalkeeper. So if you've got 14 players, they want you to play. The issue is there's a background to that as well in relation to training and have they trained properly, etc., which probably stops the United-Brentford game happening, because we would have had 14 players, but we got it off because we didn't train on Monday. So the Premier League have the rule in place. If you've got 14 players, then they want the games to be played. And Leicester last night apparently had 9 injuries or stroke COVID. Wanted the game to be cancelled tonight, but apparently it's still going to go ahead. So the Premier League are quite strict, to be fair, and the rule is in place. So I think that's a good starting point, because I would agree with that, 14 players, and I think some of you would. The Brentford manager has come out and said that they've got 13 cases, they want the game to be cancelled. Now, as I understand it, I don't think Brentford have a youth system. I think they're a oddity in that they just scrapped it because they found that being a London club, it was hard to retain youth talent, so they just scrapped it. And they want their manager has said, let's just cancel all the games for a week and a half. Manchester United are trying to get the Brighton game cancelled, and I would believe that Man United would be in a position to play the game against Newcastle a week on Monday if things go to plan. Now, there's a lot of speculation going around. Harry Maguire's tweeted that he couldn't do some hospital visit today, and he's not been training, so people are saying he must have COVID. I think Harry Maguire actually put a message out yesterday telling people they should get vaccinated. So I don't know. I don't think we need to that's down to the club or the media to find that out and put that out there. That's not out for us to put out there. We know we've got a few players out at the moment, and there is this prospect that the Premier League locks down for a couple of weeks. But I think that everyone's going to have an opinion on this. Cristiano said recently he'll stay for the next 3 or 4 years. I want a striker to play with Ronnie, says Kashina. Me too. I think everyone will have an opinion on this, but I just think that selfishly, I really enjoyed Arsenal West Ham last night. Man City Leeds, I didn't really enjoy it as much, but it's that time of the year, dark nights and all that. I like to put football on. I like to watch football. I want to watch football, and I will just say it. If Man United game against Brighton gets cancelled, we'll have to deal with it. But I don't want all the Premier League games to get cancelled, because I want to be able to at least watch a couple of games over the weekend for my football's really important to me, and if United don't play because they can't play, that's disappointing. But I don't want to see a blanket Premier League ban. I think that the way that this virus is going, there's so many people don't know the answer to it, and it could fizzle out in a couple of weeks. It could be here for another couple of months in relation to this variant. So what we're going to do? What scares me when people say let's lock it down for a week. It's a bit like when we had the first lockdown and Boris Johnson said we're going to lock down for a couple of weeks, and then we didn't come out for 3 months. And I think Thomas Frank is wrong. I think that if you let's just cancel the games for a couple of weeks, what do the players do for a couple of weeks? Not train. Well, they're going to need a couple of weeks after that to get back to being match sharp. And I don't think people think these things through. I think they sit there with a microphone in front of them and they just come out. They let their mouth spew shit, basically. So what Thomas Frank is saying is, let's cancel the game at the weekend, let's cancel our Carabao Cup game next week, and let's play on Boxing Day. So we can have a deep clean and a reset. To do that, your players can't come into training. So if they don't train for a week, how are they going to play on Boxing Day? So you're not going to play on Boxing Day. So what he's basically saying, let's cancel it for a week, but really that means just cancel it and let's just sit back and see what happens. And as I said, what a footballer's going to do over Christmas, they're not going to stay in. They're not going to live in a bubble. They're going to go and do what they're doing anyway. So I personally think that put the protocols in place and ride it out. And yeah, we might lose some games along the way, but some games will get played. But they need to get stricter protocols in place. And I certainly think that 14 players is the way to go. And it will hit a lot of teams. It's going to hit every team. And the teams it doesn't hit are going to be the teams that actually get their players to do what needs to be done. So if you've got a situation where Man City are putting their strongest team out all over Christmas, but Brentford are playing half their first team and United are playing half their first team, why are Man City getting it right and Brentford and United aren't? Is that just bad luck, or is it that they've got their players following protocols? I don't know, but I think that if they shut it down, we might not see football again until February. And do we really want that to do that? Teams will say they haven't got 14 though, says Robert McCormack, and that I think this is it. I think Robert's absolutely spot on again. I think that what will happen is Newcastle might look at it and go, well, it's in our interest to not play any games until February because then we can buy players in January, and then we can stay up. Someone's got a calf strain. This is the thing, and I think this is the problem, and this is where the Premier League needs to be quite strict. And I think at the end of the day, points deductions and everything's on the table, isn't it? But they're going to have to run it. They are in charge of that league. Run it properly. Apparently yesterday at Carrington there was Premier League officials there monitoring how United's COVID protocols are being implemented, and I think they need to do that at all clubs. And look, I think what you're facing up to here is, and some people just say, "Oh, cancel it," and they've probably got a weekend away or something. I don't know, but the reality, and some people are obviously worried about the variant, which is absolutely fine. But we've been down this road before. The first lockdown was chaos because it was the start and it was rife and everyone was locked down in their house for 3 months. The second lockdown last year in January, we didn't lose any games, even though there was no vaccination and there was massive amounts of infection and people in hospital in the UK in January, and hardly any games got cancelled. So tell me this, you can't just sit here and say, oh, but this one's way more infectious. But last year's one was very infectious and there was no vaccine to sort of counter it. And yet every United game in January took place. And now a year later, slightly more infectious variant, but way less serious, and a lot of people have been vaccinated now. But we can't play games. It's a contradiction in itself. And to me, in that with the lack of evidence, what's clear is that Premier League clubs are not following the protocols they were a year ago, and that is why it's spreading like wildfire through Premier League clubs. And yet a year ago, when they had no protection from vaccines or anything like that, and the world was in lockdown again, they were still playing games. So the Premier League, if they shut it down, I don't think we'll see football until at least mid-January, because if you shut down, they can't train, and if they can't train, they can't just switch a switch. If you shut down for a week, they'll need another week to get match fitness, so that's 2 weeks. If you shut down for 2 weeks, they'll need 2 weeks to get back to fitness, so that's a month. For every week you shut it down, you're doubling how long it will take to come back. And that is why what Thomas Frank has said is completely irresponsible, because he's not talking correctly. You can't shut down for a week and then play Boxing Day. The players just won't be able to do it. That game last night was amazing. I thought West Ham might have pulled something off, but Arsenal got them on the counter both times. I thought Arsenal were very impressive, Apollo, and that's what I mean in a footballing sense. This is why I want United to play some bloody games, because I think Arsenal have got a bit of momentum at the moment, and if that gap will just start getting bigger. I mean, they're playing Leeds on Saturday if it goes ahead. Cancel game will ruin us. Even the easiest of fixtures become tricky when they come thick and fast. We have depth in numbers but not quality, says Ami. Yeah, your opinion is irresponsible, says Just Gens. Well, it's not irresponsible, is it? Because I've just given you quite a good explanation about what was happening a year ago and what's happening now. But your opinion is irresponsible. Well, your opinion is baseless, because you're not giving us any counter argument to what I've just said. But in a word, my opinion is my opinion, and you will have your opinion. That's more than a word; it's a sentence. But I am not against people who don't want to get the vaccine. As I said yesterday, I'm not saying that you're wrong to say that we should have a lockdown again. That is your opinion. My opinion is, if we stop the Premier League, you may as well stop it. I don't think we'll see it again for a month, at least a month. And do I think that pubs and restaurants and cinemas and families and football should be stopping now? No, I don't. Why have we all been fucking jabbed 2 or 3 times in the last year? Why have we done all that if we're now going straight back to where we were 2 years ago? What was the point in that? And do they not appreciate the mental torture this causes for people to have to stop their lives again and go and live in a cardboard box? You know, mentally. So that's not irresponsible. That's an opinion. Now, if you want to do that, you go and do it. If you want to live in your house and not see anybody because you're scared of the variant, you go and do it. But I don't think everybody has to do that anymore. I really don't. It's difficult for football. It is difficult for football because you'll have different opinions within different squads. But in football, it's actually quite easy because, as I said, a year ago, we had a we were locked down for Christmas in the UK. We were locked down for Christmas. We were told you can only see one other family on Christmas Day, and all around that, you're on your own. And all January, and all February. And yet, football continued all over Christmas. We had Boxing Day games, we had New Year's Day. Football continued. So tell me this. How did football continue a year ago when we were all in lockdown with no vaccines and in a very infectious strain? How did we do that a year ago? But now we're like, oh, we can't do it. We can't do it. Because the protocols of a year ago are not being implemented now. And that's all they need to do. Ride it out for a week or so. Get your protocols in place, and then we will see football by Boxing Day. But I don't think that means I don't mind that. I don't mind, look, Brighton gets postponed, but we'll have everything sorted for Newcastle. But what I don't want to see is a blanket, we're shutting down, because that's I think we're going back to where we were 18 months ago, where we'll see a month or two of no football. Herd immunity, why can't we learn to live with it? I understand it's contagious, but vaccinated and treat it like flu, which it is, for God's sakes, esteem. Well, I don't think we're talking about the depth of that. Everyone will have an opinion on that. We're talking about football matches and whether football needs to be shut down, and I don't agree. I don't agree with it being shut down, because I know for a fact that Premier League clubs are not doing what they were doing a year ago. They've basically opened up and gone, live your lives, do whatever you want to do. Whereas a year ago it was like, in your private lives, please limit your interactions with strangers, because that is where you're going to pick it up. Yes, you might pick it up from your wife or your partner or your kids. Nobody can stop that. But limit your interactions. Limit your social interactions. You're a professional sportsman. Limit your social interactions. And that is why the Premier League needs to back that up. Because obviously you will get footballers who go to parties that they're not meant to do. They'll go out on the piss, and like they did in the last lockdown, like they do all the time. And they'll get caught in compromised situations. But that's why the Premier League then has to say, well, you've got 14 players, you're playing. This is not about stopping every Manchester United player or every Liverpool player from getting COVID, because they're going to get it. It's about putting strict protocols in place so that you will always have 14 players available, 15, 16 players available. You will have times where people aren't available. That's going to happen over the next 6 weeks. But get the protocols in place. If you've got 14 first team players, supplement with them some youth and play your games. And I think that is the way to go. Of course, you're not going to get Liverpool's best team, Man United's best team, Brighton's best team, Leicester's best team. Of course that's not going to happen. But that's just luck of the draw. And that should even itself out with everybody. But locking it down and saying we're cancelling it, I think will be... We saw what happened last time, and it could be 2 months, it could be 3 months, it could be 1 month. Mark, why can't the Premier League put the stricter regulations in place and have a team like the way they do the drug testing to check all the players? Says P. I agree that's what they've got to do, but look, I don't know what's going to happen. I personally think that the Brighton game on Saturday will get cancelled. We have got a preview for you at 2 o'clock today, but that may well be another. I'm almost scared to do it because I did a preview for Brentford and it got cancelled within 2 hours. So I think it will get cancelled. I know Brighton. I mean, look, if you're Brighton, they lost one night. Well, they lost 1-0 last night. They played Wednesday night and they've got to play Saturday lunchtime. They're going to want that game to get postponed, not because of COVID. I mean, they will because of COVID, but they'll want it postponed anyway. United have had. But then again, maybe if you're Brighton, United are very vulnerable. You know, we've got a few players out, but I think that game will probably end up getting postponed, which is a shame. But look, to be honest with you, that's my. I said that after the Brentford game. I thought that the Brighton game would get postponed. They need to do it soon though, and I feel so sorry for these fans that. And I heard the British government yesterday in their press conference advising people not to go to football, and I thought, what a load of bollocks! Like, if you've had the vaccine, because that's what you need to do to go to football on Saturday. If you've had the vaccine, and you want to go and watch the football, go and watch the bloody football. Like, they either tell you football's behind closed doors, or you can go to football. And this is what gets on my tits about this government in this country, is that you can't say, we advise you not to go to the football. You either can or you can't. And if you can, why wouldn't you go? Because you've got to have the vaccine to go anyway, because it's vaccine passports now. But either lock us down or don't. But if you do lock us down, why are you bloody doing it? If we shut it down and don't return until February, then that would happen with the Champions League. How would the season be finished? Says Rory Saunders. And I think that's a great point from Rory. It just feels like, look, I read a lot of things, and it feels like if you look at what's going on in South Africa, who are 4 weeks behind us, sorry, they're 4 weeks ahead of us with this variant. They are basically saying the hospitalisations and virus are way weaker than they are with the Delta variant. This is technical about COVID, etc. But in the UK, we're acting like this is Armageddon. You know, we're acting like this is the end. Now, look, nobody can predict the future. Maybe it will be bad. Maybe it won't be bad. But it's almost like we're bloody going back to 2 years ago. And as I said, the first lockdown, when the football got locked down for 3 months, and we were all bloody living in our houses like bloody snails. I get that. But some of us have had 2 or 3 jabs in our arm now, and we're being told, well, it's a less severe variant. It is more infectious, and we know a lot of you have got vaccine, but we want you to go and live in your house again like a snail. Fuck off! No, what? This is stupid. But that's a different argument. That's more of a life argument. That's more of a life argument. That's a personal choice. That's whether you want to go to the football. That's whether you want to see your friends and family. That's a personal choice. In relation to football, if you've got a squad of 20 players and 15 of them have got COVID, you can't play a game of football. And I want to make that very clear. This is in relation to football. If you've got a squad of 20 and 15 have got COVID, you can't play a match. And the Premier League wouldn't make them play a match. What the Premier League have said is, if you've got 14 first team players available, we want you to play the game. And that's something very different to what we're talking about. But look, as you can tell by me this morning, I'm labouring under frustration and disappointment. And it's not just about the football. I mean, I'm talking about general life. I'm meant to be going out this afternoon for a few drinks in a pub. And a couple of people have messaged saying, are we going to go? And I've said, well, are we cancelling it or are we going ahead? And a couple of the lads said, no, well, let's go. And I've gone, right, I'm going to go. Because at the end of the day, I don't know. This is not like 18 months ago, as I said, when the first variant came along and people were going to Cheltenham and matches and it spread and a lot of people lost their lives. This is not like that. This is, I've had 2 jabs in my arm. We've got evidence that this is not as severe as the other one. And in 2 weeks' time, I don't want to be sat there going, oh, I didn't go out on that day out for Christmas. Maybe I'm making a bad decision, maybe I'm making a good decision, but I'm also, on Christmas Day next week, I'm not seeing family. I don't care what they say about restrictions. I'm not doing it, because I did it last year, and I watched a lot of people on my street still went and saw friends and family. We didn't even have a fucking vaccine, and people were dying in January. But I'm not doing it. You know, and maybe that's a risk, but I'm just not doing it anymore. I'm not going into a lockdown anymore. I'm fed up of it. Because ultimately, yeah, I could walk across the road tomorrow and get knocked down by a bus. I could also get this variant and it might kill me as well. But I tell you what is slowly depressing me is this oppressive, bloody dictatorship that we're starting to live in as a society now, where you think you're getting back to normal. You think you've been through this horrific 18 months. You think you're getting back to normal. And you're a week out from Christmas, and everyone's going, yeah, we're thinking of locking it down again. We're shutting the pubs down. We're doing this. We're doing that. You can only see one family. Fuck off. No. At some point, you get to a point, especially when you get all the other stuff about parties that the government were having last year, and you think, nah, I'm not complying with this bullshit anymore. It's a personal choice. If you're terrified of the variant, stay inside. If you, like me, are like, well, look, I might get it and I might get seriously ill, but I've done everything I can do. I've had the vaccine. I'm careful with masks and stuff like that. I wash my hands. I'm going to get on with it. But look, this is turning into a political show and not about football. You can't ask footballers to do a lockdown at the end. They're human. We all do it, or nobody does it. This is Daniel Kirk. But Daniel, you're not listening, Daniel. I've said this twice today and once last night. You can ask footballers to follow protocols because they did it a year ago. Bringing it back to football, I wouldn't lock football down and cancel it for a month. That might suit you, Daniel. Maybe you want to go and play bloody FIFA for a month or something. I don't know. Maybe you're doing it because you're worried about footballers' health. All very noble reasons, but nobody is saying get on the football pitch and risk your health. If this was brand new, we might be saying, there'd be more of a debate. But what I am saying is, a year ago, no vaccine, loads of infection, loads of people in hospital. The hospitals in the UK last January were at breaking point. Hundreds of deaths every day. And yet, Premier League football continued. How did it continue in such a dangerous period a year ago? Because they had protocols in place. A year later, vaccines in arms, less severe illness. We can't play games. That's all I'm saying, Daniel. I'm saying we're not talking about footballers' health. We're not talking about footballers' well-being. A year ago, they were able to play football matches in the most infectious and dangerous time we've ever had with COVID. A year later, with vaccines and all that in place, we can't play football. The reason they can't play football at the moment, and I've been told this firsthand, the reason games are getting cancelled is because the protocols disappeared. Because they didn't think they needed them anymore. So footballers and staff are just going around, Christmas parties, shopping, this, that, and they're all just doing anything they used to do 3 years ago. What we need to do is go back to the world we lived in a year ago for professional sport, where they're monitoring their interactions and living, more careful lives in their private lives, and then in their playing lives, the club will take over that, will test you, this, that, and the other. And you watch what'll happen. It will change. I'm not just talking about football, I'm talking rugby, darts, everything, snooker. Snooker, the way they did snooker was superb. The way they did snooker was brilliant, because they'd have snooker tournaments, and what they'd do is they'd get the players to go into a hotel 3 days before the tournament started, and they would test them for 3 days. And on the third day, if you tested positive, you weren't allowed into that tournament. And they ran every tournament. So it's easy to do. You just need more responsibility and more protocols. But if you don't want that, then football will shut down. I've got the same opinion as you, Mark. Love it. Look, I haven't got no problem with a different opinion to me. No problem with a different opinion to me at all. I'm just telling you what I think, and I just think that the clubs, you know what as well. Can I just say this? I said this yesterday. If United play against Brighton on Saturday, and 4 or 5 first team players lose their spot, they won't start. They won't be fucking going to parties and stuff next week. Because they'll be like, oh, shit, I've lost my place. So it's also about risk and reward, isn't it? If you're always going to keep your place and you can just keep pissing about, then you'll just keep pissing about. If the Premier League say we've got to play that game on, I mean, it's probably a bad example, the Brighton game, but let's say the Newcastle game. You're playing the Newcastle game because you will have 14 first team players available. And then, next week, a couple of United players or whatever, they go out, they go to a party, they go to a shopping centre or something like that, and they pick it up, and then they miss the game, and then someone takes their spot. Well, they'll start being more careful then after that. And look, the thing is, we've been here a year ago, so don't talk to me about human rights or anything like that, because we've been in this situation a year ago, and they didn't have a problem with it then. So and I think this will only be for about a month or two. They've just got to be careful for a month or two. But let's see what happens. In relation to other transfer news, let's talk about Anthony Martial. So Atletico Madrid apparently don't want Anthony Martial, but Italian reports are saying that Juventus would take Anthony Martial on a loan deal, which I don't know. I don't know about a loan deal, to be honest. I'm not convinced about Anthony. He's on massive wages, but I don't know whether a loan deal is a good deal for Anthony Martial, because I don't know whether it's a good deal for Manchester United. Jesse Lingard went on loan last year and then he stayed at the bloody club. So loan deals for Man United aren't necessarily a good thing. People will say, "Oh, you saved their wages," but I think Anthony Martial on loan for the back half of this season, especially when we're going to have potential fixture backlog. What if Rashford gets injured? Cavani's never fit. Greenwood and Ronaldo as our front two and no one else. So I wouldn't loan Anthony Martial. I'd say to Anthony Martial, you know what, you can go in the summer, but you stay until the summer, because we don't need to save his wages. We're not bankrupt. So I'm not interested in an Anthony Martial loan. I think a Martial loan would be a waste of time. And as I said, I'd mentioned to you the Leeds goalkeeper thing, which I just find a little bit weird, really. Let's have a quick look if anything else is going on. Brighton against Manchester United at Old Trafford at the weekend. Well, somebody said, what do you think's going to happen? I mean, what I think's going to happen and what's going to happen, we are wandering into completely new territory. I mean, Simon Stone says it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Manchester United's game on Saturday. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer purposely had a big squad to cover potential COVID issues. Brighton had kids on the bench last night. Premier League rule is clubs must have 14 players available, but other factors taken into account, including training facilities. I mean, if I'm absolutely honest, the way I read that, and Joshua says, with cancelling fixtures, we need to keep in mind how small the break between seasons is this year, says Joshua Boutwater. Yes. When I read that from Simon Stone, that effectively says to me, as long as you've been training and you've got 14 players, you play the game. Now, that's very strict, and some people would say it's not fair, but that's the rules. And everyone knows those rules. So have United got 14 first-team players who trained yesterday, today, and tomorrow? And if they have, do you want the game to be played? And Brighton, if they've got 14 first-team players, do they have to play the game? Now look, it's not going to be Brighton's first team, and it's not going to be Manchester United's first team. Some people don't like that and would say, I'd rather it got postponed. Postponed to when? Oh, we've got time in January. Oh, January, when flu and everything's bad anyway? Well, let's put it back to April. Oh, April, when there's a fixture backlog because we're in the latter stages of the FA Cup and the Champions League. Maybe we should have played it with 14 players and got it out of the way. They're weakened, we're weakened, bring it on. So you can tell where I am. If we've got 14 players and they've not got COVID and they've been training, play the game. But it's how much the Premier League are going to push it. I think clubs don't want to play these games because they are thinking we're not as strong as we can be. We don't want to lose the points. I get that. But you might not want to play it in April when you've got loads and loads of other games and you've got a bit of an injury crisis because your players are tired. So sometimes I think it's right to get the game on. But what I'll always say is, if there is medical reasons why we can't have this game, it'll have to be postponed. But I do feel a little bit more, not confident that the games will go ahead. I mean, look, flip a coin. I don't know whether the Premier League are going to suspend football or not. But I've got to be honest, whether it's Arsenal playing with 14 players, whether it's Man City, I think there's something quite exciting about that. Imagine how exciting it would be to see United play and having to put 3 or 4 young players on their bench to supplement a team that's not your normal team. I think there's something quite exciting about it because I think other clubs are going to be in the same position. We know Brighton are in the same position anyway. It's not like we're playing Brighton's strongest team, so it'll even itself out. But it's just we're in the hands of the Premier League and how much they want to push it. But I would reiterate, if you've got a situation where you've got 14 players who've got COVID and you've only got a team of 10 left, you can't play the game. And I like what the Premier League have got, 14 players. And, maybe we have got that and maybe we haven't. Daniel says, why should they lock down and we don't have to? Last year everyone was in lockdown. Why should they lock down and we don't have to? Yeah, that's what I mean, Daniel. Yeah, okay. And hi, Mark. Do you think clubs will look at players in January transfer and take into consideration if they're vaccinated or not? Says SB. I pretty much think that is a very good point, and I pretty much think that a lot of people would be doing that. In Germany, fans are not allowed in the stadium, says the Big Hoss. I mean, I don't get that. To be honest with you, I don't get the correlation. Please smash a like on the video, by the way. I know it's been quite heavy today, but I think until we get some clarity on what's happening, it does play with people's mental health and stuff, and it's not just football. I realise it's everything else, but this is an interesting point. If we put games behind closed doors, does that mean that we'll have less games postponed? I don't think there's any correlation. United haven't got COVID because they played in front of 30,000 fans at Carrow Road. United have got COVID because somebody has COVID and has trained with our players. That's how it's spread. It's not spread because Delia Smith had a cough at Carrow Road. That's not what it's about. So if there is a match at Old Trafford on Saturday and 75,000 fans turn up, is Diego Dalot going to get COVID because someone in the crowd coughs at him? Very unlikely. Very unlikely. I don't think fans in ground. I think basically the reason to stop putting fans in grounds is to protect fans from catching COVID from each other. I don't think there's any correlations between the players catching it and fans catching it. Fans in the crowd catch it from each other. Players on the pitch catch it from each other. They're two separate things. So I don't agree. I think if fans in the ground are stopped, then Premier League will probably stop. And also remember, from this weekend, everybody who goes to Old Trafford has to be vaccinated because they've got to have a vaccine pass. So, it's an interesting one. I almost feel like apologetic that it's happening again at Christmas time. When everybody wants to actually, after a difficult year, enjoy themselves and socialise, and same as last year, we're getting hit with this right here, right now. It's really disappointing. I'm not just talking from a footballing sense as well. So, look, I don't know. I'm not going to change where I was on Tuesday. My feeling was that this game would get postponed. I think that they need to postpone it quickly. But there are Premier League games tonight, and you have this conversation like we were having yesterday, and then I sit and watch Arsenal West Ham, and I'm like, what's going on? We're having this conversation about United like it's the end of the Premier League, and then I'm watching Arsenal play West Ham, and it's absolutely fine. And tonight there's games that are going to happen. So Mike says it's simple. Here in Australia, if you choose not to vaccinate, you're ineligible to play professional sport, says Mike. I mean, I could speak an hour for this. Could you call Jordan a prat, says Butter. I want to shout out the guy who actually, when I was walking back from taking Seb to school today, pulled up in his car with his missus and had a Man United dressing gown on. He watches the show. He said he was coming home to watch the show. I was a bit thrown by why you were in the passenger seat in your dressing gown. I was walking home for 5 minutes thinking, why would your wife be driving you around in a Man United dressing gown? But the mind boggles with that one. It really does. But thanks anyway. Just going to that point there, somebody said in Australia, if you're not vaccinated, you can't play professional sport. Imagine that minefield in football. So Man United's star player is not vaccinated. So Man United say, we don't want you anymore. And Everton go, we'll take you. That's the problem with football. There is no morals in football. And example, footballer at mid-table Premier League club, star player, wants to leave. Goes on strike. Outs themselves as an arsehole. Top 4 clubs still buy him. So you can't say, if you're not vaccinated, you're not playing for this football club. Because if they're a decent footballer, somebody will take them. Imagine if it's Kylian Mbappe at PSG and PSG say, yeah, we don't want you to play anymore, there'd be a queue of clubs saying, yeah, we'll take you. Football's immoral, so you could never implement something like that. Before you even get to human rights, you wouldn't be able to implement it anyway, because there's always going to be a club. I mean, Newcastle will go, yeah, we'll pay you. So that would have to be a football level rule that if you're not vaccinated, you can't play football. You'd never get that through the courts. So I don't think we're going to get to that. And as I said yesterday, I haven't got a problem with people who don't want to get vaccinated. That is their personal choice. And, you know, it's causing a big problem for football, because there are footballers for Manchester United who have not been vaccinated, haven't got COVID, but can't train because they've got to isolate for 10 days because they've been in contact with somebody who's got COVID. Now, that is frustrating, because if all the players who are United players who aren't vaccinated were training like they should be because they haven't got COVID, then we'd have enough players. But that's the rules. They've chose not to. It's their reason. That example not relevant in Australia or the Professional Football Rugby League doesn't allow unvaccinated players, says Mike. Well, there you go. I mean, Australia have got some quite strict rules on lots of things, immigration as well, and I know a lot of Australians and they're very happy with it. Bayern did the same thing, Mark. They didn't allow Kimmich to play until he vaccinated, says Kushino. Yeah, but if you're Bayern Munich, it's a bit different, isn't it? Hans says, if, for example, the Prem would stop for a month, would then the C-League matches be pushed back? A bit nervous as I booked a trip to the Atletico game, says Hans. Look, I'm not gonna scaremonger anybody. The reality is I don't know what's going to happen. If the Premier League gets cancelled, I don't think we'll see it again for a long time. Because we've been and I evidenced that by what they did on the first lockdown. And the problem is, as I said, if you cancel the Premier League for a week, you're cancelling it for 2 weeks, because the players will be off for a week and then they'll need to train for a week before they can play a game. If you cancel it for 2 weeks, that's a month. 2 weeks cancellation, 2 weeks to get back fit. Because what people don't realise is, oh, let's cancel it for a week. Well, they won't be training then, will they? Because it's all about isolation then. So I hope it doesn't get cancelled, but we'll have to wait and see. And some people do want it to get cancelled, and that's why this is the genius of this channel and this conversation, is that every opinion is welcome, and mine's not necessarily right, and neither's yours. But let's just wait and see what happens. Anyway, we have got a preview for the Brighton game at 2 o'clock. Who knows? I would hope by then there has been an announcement, but maybe the Premier League will push it late again because the Premier League want this game to be played. So I wouldn't get too... The longer it goes on, the more the Premier League are trying to get the game to be played. That's the way I would look at it. If it gets cancelled today, then obviously it gets cancelled today. And I know people want clarity, but the longer the delay, the more the Premier League want the game to be played. So, off-topic question, Mark. Would the United stand ever consider to cover Man United's women's team, says Kushina? No, there's plenty of people who do that. I don't watch the women's team. My daughter plays women's football. I love women's football, but I don't have time to watch it. Maybe in the future we could get somebody involved, but there's plenty of other people who cover that, and they cover it really, really well. So I can't cover something I don't watch, but maybe in the future we could look at getting somebody in. Thanks everybody for watching. Take care. Take care of that as well. Try and stay positive. I know it's a difficult time, not just for football, but in general. I'm really feeling it this morning. So take care. We've got a fantastic community. We don't always agree on things. That's the whole point. Like, you know, if I've said something today that you agree with, great. If I've said something today that you really disagree with, great. Because I'm not telling you what I'm saying is right. I'm just giving you my opinion, and you might have a different one. So take care. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Thanks for watching.